Marvelous hello, friends and loved ones! How are you today? And welcome to a very special LGR-inspired Edutainment Month episode. For those of you that don't know, Edutainment Gaming combines being educational with being entertaining. And since I'm not really known for being either of these things, I thought this would be a great chance to break out of my comfort zone. But before I get started, I'd like to enjoy this cool, refreshing Diet Dr. Pepper. Reader Rabbit, the third installment in the Reader Rabbit series, was first released for MS-DOS in 1993 by The Learning Company, which has 3 words in it. An enhanced version known as Reader Rabbit Deluxe was released on CD-ROM for Mac and Windows in 1994. I'm going to assume this is the one I played most as a child, but how should I know? I was a child who could barely read, which is probably why my parents had me playing Reader Rabbit 3. However, for this video, we'll be looking at the DOS version, as since I no longer own a physical copy of the game, I'll be doing my learning from a version I found on an abandonware site. The game opens up with a catchy tune, and Reader Rabbit, ready to start the day, opens up the newspaper to see that the very paper he is reading is hiring. Which, my dark sense of humor leads me to think that whoever posted this ad was fired shortly thereafter, creating the job we're going to apply for. Heading into the Daily Skywriter with his fanciest tie and no pants, Reader logs onto the computer and is immediately hired. After creating a profile, players can choose one of 5 activity options, which I'll be going over in chronological order, because that seems like the most efficient option, and efficiency seems like a required skill if I'm going to be working for a newspaper. Our first stop, What's the Scoop, has our rabbit companion overlooking a team of editors who all look just slightly annoyed that this guy has been promoted above them on his first day. Reader will grab a piece of paper with a word or group of words on it, and players need to determine if those words are a who or what, a when, a where, or a did what. Each correct answer will earn you 2 puzzle pieces towards a story, and getting 10 pieces results in a completed story, which will be neatly tucked away in this box. While you only need to complete 1 story per activity, the truly dedicated Reader Rabbiteers can complete up to 7 stories per level for a grand total of at least 35 problems to solve. Filling your story box will reward players with a small cutscene showing them the event's progress. In the case of What's the Scoop, Mr. Rabbit will ride the elevator with this frog, who may just be my favorite character in the game. He does not give a single crap about anything. There are a grand total of 4 levels for each activity, with level 2 usually just being more of the same, but slightly harder, level 3 introducing a new possible answer in the form of how, and level 4 also asking the deep philosophical question that has plagued humanity for centuries: why? What's the Scoop is probably the part of this game I remember the most, but since I'm now slightly more intelligent than I was when I was 6, I think we should take a look at the other sections as well. Activity number 2 is Clue Hounds, where RR hops into an airplane with the Clue Hound brothers, where players will still have to identify who, what, where, when, and did what, but this time are given a series of sentences where they must correctly pick out the section of the sentence that matches what the dogs are looking for. Levels 3 and 4 once again add how and why to the equation, but make it a fair bit harder by forcing kids to select the words individually and make up the correct part of the sentence. I'm a bit ashamed to say that I did fail a couple of these by either including too many words or not enough in my final answer. The best part about the Clue Hounds levels is that it also has kids on the lookout for context clues in the chronicle, as each case conceals a culprit amidst the colorful cast of characters that must be caught, captured, and caramelized. It's essentially baby's first Ace Attorney, and I kind of love it. If the story talks about an individual who collected trash bags, it's probably that Roscoe Rat fellow, who the game describes as a garbage collector. I know they probably mean he's like a city worker who is employed by the sanitation department, but at first I just thought they meant he collected trash for fun, like, as a hobby. Upon completing level 4 will simply cycle again, replaying the cutscenes from the story. In the case of the Clue Hounds, progression comes in the form of more advanced aircraft until they acquire a rocket that crashes through the roof. Next up is Sneak Peek, where apparently the Daily Skywriter pays this middle-aged mole mom and her weirdly intelligent baby to film total strangers as they go about their business, at the aquarium or at baseball games, and she even spies on couples as they try to enjoy a romantic date in the park. The fact that she's on the payroll for this makes me feel even worse for the imaginary employee I invented that got fired so we could be here. Like in the other sections, the focus is on the who, what, when, where, did what, and eventual how and why. This time with Sneaker Mole asking players to find which sentence contains the answers in the requested order. I found this section oddly easier because the correct answer is usually the only one that makes any grammatical sense at all, but I guess that's because I is smart, and I could see this activity helping shape young minds who are new to reading. After completing each successful story, you'll have the option to move on or watch a quick cartoon showcasing the events of the puzzle you just pieced together. It's not as exciting as catching a garbage-collecting rat, but it's still a fun little reward, even if some are a little creepy, like any of the ones that take place in this haunted toy store. The only thing worth noting about this stage's cutscenes is that if Sneaker and Baby are supposed to be incognito as they spy on the townsfolk, I think having this rocket-propelled hovering stroller A, defeats the purpose of looking like you're out for some morning exercise, B, makes it a little hard to not stand out, and C, tells me that someone really needs to adjust the budget a bit if all of the newspaper's employees are getting paid enough to afford rockets. And that's how you learn your ABCs. The final main stage is Edwards, and Edward, I get it, that's funny. And I think this may be the most enjoyable stage for older audiences. For the fourth time in a row, yes, we are dabbling in the who, the what, the where, the when, the did what, the how, and the why. But in this section, players are given an entire paragraph with 5 blanks in it. The game goes through each one and asks what type of answer should be placed there, and upon successfully choosing the right answer, you can fill in the blank with 2 different predetermined answers, or by typing in your own. The ability to type your own answers essentially turns every puzzle into your own personal game of Mad Libs, which I've always enjoyed, and yes, I checked, once you select the right answer, you really can type just about anything your heart desires, provided it fits within the answer's character limit. And I honestly had an absolute blast with this section. It's a lot of fun to come up with dumb answers to completely ruin these stories. I'd like to read for you one of my favorites. What do kids do on Penn Island? Many of you eat farts. Some of you swim in root beer. A few of you commit arson. And someone poisoned the water hole. Do you know who builds dams? That last sentence sounds like I filled it with some of my own nonsense, but I actually didn't touch that one at all. The best part of this is that after each completed story, Edward comes out and is like, okay, and the look on his face tells me he is really starting to regret hiring the first pantsless rabbit that walked into his office. So long as you've completed at least one story in each activity, you can head to the printing press, which, true to its name, lets you print out a physical copy of the newspaper you've just created, which you can give to your parents to put on the fridge and get weird stares and follow-up questions like, why would you do this? You're almost 30, John. What's wrong with you? And that, good folks, is Reader Rabbit 3, the only entry in the series I've personally ever played. But seeing that it left enough of an impression on my young mind to make a YouTube video about it over 20 years later, I can easily see why the Reader Rabbit series has lasted as long as it has, and has left his rabbit-shaped footprint in the history of edutainment gaming. I don't think it would be an exaggeration to say that the skills I learned from this game sparked my love of reading and writing, and indirectly contributed to the very video you're watching right now. Penn Island.